This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Roerick. Episode 119, recorded August 3rd, 2017. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host, the editor-in-chief of TV Enthusiast. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is William Roerick.
Hello.
So, today, we are going to be talking about Twin Peaks and Game of Thrones, episode 12 of season 3 of Twin Peaks, and episode 3 of season 7 of Game of Thrones. First up, let's talk about Twin Peaks. We had kind of an episode where I felt like half the episode I had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah, okay, so should we start from the top with, Twin Peaks? Basically, I feel like the first half of the episode was more understandable. They touched upon plot lines that we were already following. I believe we begin with the FBI, and they're inducting, what's her name? The female agent.
Agent Preston.
Okay, I want to call her Tracy for some reason, but I know that's wrong.
I had it, according to the IMDb listing that I copied down, it's Agent Tamara Preston.
Tammy, that's right. It's Tammy. Tracy, well, Tracy's close. But anyway, anyway, they're inducting her into the Blue Rose Club, which is like apparently the secret paranormal division of the FBI Gordon Cole invented, which Dale Cooper was a part of, and so was the other agent there.
It also had ties to Major Briggs.
Albert, yeah, had ties to Major Briggs. David Bowie's character was also leading it at the time. And
Cooper had something to do with it too.
They mentioned Cooper was an agent in the Blue Rose. So he listed off the agents. It was Albert, Cooper, David Bowie's FBI agent character, and then Cole mentions that all those agents disappeared mysteriously except for Albert. Or Albert mentions that actually, because Albert's the one doing all talking. So with that information, they induct Tammy into the club as the new agent. And they also mention that she's the first new agent inducted into the Blue Rose in a while. Because of the disappearances, they've been reluctant to induct more agents into that.
Probably in more than 25 years, I'd guess.
Yeah, I would say probably since Cooper disappeared. Yeah.
Before they actually inducted her, though, Cole and Albert were discussing Diane's transmissions because Albert had been watching them and had mentioned that, like, some of the text messages that she had been sending back and forth, and something about the person contacting her who seems to be Mr. C or Evil Cooper, like, you know, do they know yet? And then her saying like no or something, they haven't asked me or something.
Right.
And then Tammy comes in, she gets involved in the group, then they bring Diane in for drinks. Diane, of course, being watched by Cole and Albert. Later in the episode, we find out that Diane looks at, she kind of takes a sneaky look at a picture of that arm with coordinates on it, and she enters it into her iPhone, and because she seems to be evil right now, so of course she has an iPhone. And then in maps, she's kind of zooming in on it and sees that the coordinates are right around Twin Peaks.
I'm surprised she memorized those coordinates, like, just straight from memory. I couldn't possibly do that. I'd be like...
Well, she looked at the picture and then was, like, reciting it in her head over and over again.
Yeah, but she memorized it from the picture. I mean, that's still a pretty good memory, in my opinion.
I have a pretty bad short-term memory, so yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be like 7, 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, and then I'd be like, I know it started with 7.
Yeah. Damn it! Why isn't this right? But yeah, the coordinates on the dead woman's arm point to Twin Peaks, which makes sense. Everything leads to Twin Peaks in the end, right?
Yeah, where else is it going to be?
Yeah, I know, right?
Early in the episode, we also see Sarah Palmer in a store absolutely losing her shit. Completely losing her mind.
Oh yeah. She starts talking about the turkey jerky. First of all, she's buying like a shit ton of alcohol. And then she sees the turkey jerky behind the counter and she just flips out. Starts talking about like men coming to this place. I don't know, just starts saying like weird shit. And then she just leaves.
Yeah, it's kind of like we kind of don't know what's going on with her. She seems to be seeing something. Maybe she's haunted, literally haunted, not like saying emotionally haunted. Because they've kind of shown things in the past, even in the original series, of her kind of like perceiving things that maybe she shouldn't be, like seeing like the horse in the middle of the room and stuff in the original series. Or something going on with that. She had some kind of weird reactions in the first season around the time that, you know, Bob was really kind of doing mischievous things in her husband's body.
Right.
So she's kind of flipping out. Later on, somebody says that he knows where she lives and, you know, should he check on her and bring something that she had left behind?
Well, the other clerk kind of suggests, like, he knows where she lives and if he should just take what she bought and delivered it, because she just, like, bought that stuff and left it there. So he's kind of like just awkwardly like, what should I do? And then he just comes up with the idea, which probably what I would do. I don't, in that situation. I mean, it's admirable that he wants to go that extra step. That's a good employee right there. But
later on, Hawk ends up visiting her because he'd heard something was up. That's pretty much it. I mean, not a lot really eventful. We just see her kind of tripping out, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's basically her scene. She just like kind of trips out. Sheriff Truman, the other Sheriff Truman, visits Ben Horn to give him the news on all the crazy antics his grandson has been up to these past few episodes.
I actually forgot to put this in the show notes. I remembered there was something I was like, there's something I missed in the show notes, and that was a.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't notice it either.
Bringing that up because I had forgotten it. I hadn't forgotten it. I knew I had remembered it when I was writing the show notes, and then forgot to put it in.
You forgot to put it in. I mean, it's a short scene, but it's still a bit significant. I mean,
yeah,
it's just a short scene, like sort of reciting information that you as the viewer already knew. Just now, Ben Horn is aware of it, and the woman that his grandson assaulted, Ben Horn's going to pay her medical bills now. Apparently she survived. In the
hospital in critical condition.
Yep, apparently she survived his attack, and she's the key witness. So if she makes it through...
He also mentioned the little boy's family, that he'd be like compensating them as well.
Right.
About how Richard has always been something wrong with them, and he hasn't seen him since he like stopped giving him money.
Right.
Really interesting in that scene is that it's a moment for those two characters to be in the same room, because Ben brings out the key that was sent back to his hotel, and he's saying, "Hey, why don't you bring this to your brother, the other Truman from the original series, as a memento, because it's the room that Dale Cooper stayed at. The key's no use to them anymore. They use cards now."
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, it came back in the mail. It's kind of a throwback. I thought he might like it as a souvenir, and it's just kind of interesting that it comes up because the Sheriff Truman that's there is like, we've been actually seeing some stuff with Cooper's name popping up recently.
Right. He notes that it's like a coincidence that key pops up just as all this stuff about Cooper is like coming up again.
Mm-hmm. That's the most interesting aspect of that scene.
Yeah, pretty much.
Little pieces that ties kind of the two kind of separate stories or bigger stories that are going on right now. One being the FBI and the other being Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
This is like one of those linking connective tissues that we've been kind of waiting to see come together. It's not like it hasn't developed into anything big yet, but as more stuff starts coming up, it's sure to draw them together.
And that's what I can call the last pieces of the overall arching plot that we've been following.
Well, there's one other. We got one other scene.
Not from what I know, but
one other scene, which is that Evil Cooper's friends, his like crazy crazy
that's
friends
right.
assassinate the prison warden.
Assassinate the prison. I almost forgot about that scene too.
Not to talk about there, except that they did it.
Yeah, they did it, and the girl was really hungry for Wendy's.
Crucial detail.
Again, they make it really impactful because not only do they show him getting killed, they show his like son like run out the door right after he shot to death, and he's just like, and
they did the 2 shots too. It wasn't just like he got shot or something. It's like he got shot in the back, got up and was kind of struggling back up, and then got shot in the head.
They leave you with that gut punch, like damn, okay.
That's what Lynch does though,
Yeah.
He takes something bad and just tries to make it like, turn the screw a little more.
Yeah, turn the screw a little more by having the kid's son come out there and react to it. That turns the screw a little more than just seeing this warden guy get killed. So I was like, damn. But yeah, that was that scene. And then, so I don't think from appearances, there's nothing. This stuff, the rest of the stuff in this episode could tie into the overall plot a bit more, but right now, their connection.
It's just, it makes no sense.
Just not very clear at this point.
Let's talk about the lesser one first, which is that there's a conversation between 2 girls at the roadhouse.
It's 2 girls.
A guy who just got out of prison.
There's a guy that shows up. He mentions that he was almost run off the road. Run off the road by who? By Evil Cooper, by the characters who just assassinated the warden, by
Richard, maybe.
By Richard Horn. Could be any of those people. It
just is basically just them talking.
Yeah.
The guy mentioning that he almost got run off the road is probably about 1/10 of the time of their conversation.
Oh yeah, it's 1/10.
The rest is just them talking about some other shit that we have no idea about.
Something seemingly banal that has nothing to do with the show, because they're talking about this guy who's apparently seeing this girl, but then he's seeing another girl behind her back. Apparently, that's really the gist of their conversation. We don't know this guy. We don't know either of the girls. We don't know the girls who are talking. So
at first I was thinking, are they talking about Becky and her husband? And then the names don't match. They weren't.
They weren't talking, no. So what this has to do with anything is anybody's guess. Will this be relevant in the future? Maybe. I don't know.
Have we gotten any relevance from the girl with the rash from a few episodes back?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I totally forgot about that because, I don't think they ever followed up with that either.
But we had thought a few things they weren't going to follow up on, and they ended up coming back to them about 5 episodes down the line.
But the reason I mentioned the guy coming in and saying he was almost run off the road, that seems like the significant part of the scene. Not so much.
Yeah, it's a short part, but it's the only thing that kind of adds any excitement or is there some plot here?
It seems to be connected to what's going on because you can assume that the person who tried to run him off the road is somebody from the main plot that we've been following, either Evil Cooper or Richard Horn, one of the two.
Or Red, it could be that the drug deal with the coin trick.
Or Red, it could be him.
It would be somebody that's in Twin Peaks that's on the evil side, but probably more likely to be Richard Horn or Evil Cooper.
Yeah, I put them there just because they're reckless enough to do something, especially Richard Horn's reckless enough to do something like that.
And if it's Cooper, it means he's in town now.
Yes, that's true. He wasn't previously in town.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I bring
Wally Brando.
because I'm thinking, Wally Brando. So the reason I bring that part up specifically is because that seems to be it seems to be that the girls and their conversation in and of itself is not relevant to anything. It's just a random thing to set up this guy coming in and saying, "Oh, I almost got ran off the road by a crazy guy," and then that's the relevant part that ties into the show. And maybe the rest of it, the scene doesn't tie into anything and will not tie into anything in the future. They just wanted to have that context for that part and that character.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to kind of the last scene we'll talk about with this episode, which is the anticipated and kind of not really all that paid off return of Audrey Horn. Ben Horne's daughter, Richard Horne's mother. She's just kind of there in a scene with no explanation of why or what's going on really, except that apparently she's married a dwarf, a fairly nice guy who she treats very poorly. And she has a lover who she's openly discussing with this dwarf, like disappeared, and she's freaking out because he's disappeared.
Yeah, and they're also talking about other people that again we don't know who these people are. The only person we know,
people who it's lust to talk to.
The only person we know in the scene is Audrey.
Yeah.
And she's talking about and her dwarf husband is a new character, and she doesn't
mention Richard. She doesn't mention Cooper. She doesn't mention what happened with the bank explosion, which was the last we saw her in the
last we saw her is a bank explosion, and that's not even brought up.
She survived, and she was in like a hospital, and the evil Cooper had visited her.
Yes.
In the hospital, which is where there's a theory that Richard Horne might actually be evil Cooper's child, which would make sense. Like you normally wouldn't think a show would go dark with like something like that, but Twin Peaks has a lot of sexual violence in it, so I could see that being the case. Other theory going around about this scene in particular is that she's like in a coma and all of this is like in her head, or like it's like something kind of like a Black Lodge type thing. It's kind of like a figment of her imagination. This is all like fake.
Maybe the dwarf is a hint that it's a Black Lodge.
That she's in some kind of like a weird like mental purgatory kind of thing. Which I mean, I think that the reason that theory is around is because there's absolutely no context for anything she's talking about in the scene. The fact that we've been waiting for this character to return and she's not mentioning anything that she does have context in relation to. So it's kind of like, I think some people just think like, oh, well, she's like a state where she doesn't really know what's going on, or she's disconnected from the world in some way. Like she's maybe in something like the Black Lodge, or she's in a coma or something like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty disconnected scene. Again, maybe we'll find out more about Billy. Maybe he's involved in some of the stuff that's going on. Don't know. We'll find out in the future. Again, there's still 6 more episodes for my count, so we'll find out. Maybe we won't.
Yeah, gonna keep watching Twin Peaks. Not a lot really all that interesting in this episode. Probably perhaps my least favorite of the season so far.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't really.
I want more stuff to come together, or I want more weird stuff. But
there wasn't.
I don't really need more just like completely out of context, unnecessary stuff.
There was out of context stuff, and then there was like mostly exposition stuff, and it's like, yeah.
It wasn't really exciting. I mean, we're still going to be watching through it because we love the series as a whole.
As far as the episodes go,
you're wondering why there's not much enthusiasm going.
This was pretty mundane. This was definitely no episode 8.
Episode 8, which after our initial watching, we were like, how are we going to talk about this?
Yes.
Like having a really long, thoughtful conversation about it. This one's kind of like, I'm like, how are we going to talk about this? Because there's nothing really interesting to talk about.
No, this was actually a quick discussion because, well, there's not much discussion to be had.
So next up, we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones, episode 3 of season 7, The Queen's Justice. We're going to start off in Dragonstone. Much of what we're going to be talking about in Dragonstone is stuff we already mentioned in our video series, which you can check out on our website, TVEnthusiast.com. The newest episode is titled, I believe, Fire Meets Ice in Game of Thrones. So check that out, and we talk about the meeting. And Daenerys.
Too much time going over this, since if you want a more in-depth discussion on this part, you should definitely watch our video.
So I kind of just have the events queued up here. Let's just kind of go over them. Jon arrives in Dragonstone. We kind of talked about him meeting Daenerys right away, but we can talk a little bit about before he met Daenerys, which is that he met Tyrion on the beach. A moment where Tyrion was like, the bastard of Winterfell. And Jon said, the dwarf of Castle Rock. And they both kind of laughed.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see them kind of meet because they really only had, like, I think, what was it? The first 2 episodes of the first season? Or like the only time they spent together, I think. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're getting some time with them back together again. And you see this kind of connection that's kind of in the back of our head. We go, oh yeah, Tyrion respects Jon and stuff. But I mean, literally, they only had the very first 2 episodes of the first season. And now this is the only time they've had together. Kind of cool to see them meet up and be on kind of good terms like that.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Davos is talking to Missandei, trying to like make polite conversation, very awkwardly talking about, where are you from? And she says, and he's like, oh, I hear there's nuts, butterflies there. And he looks over at Jon and says, this place has changed. They're heading up the stone steps to the castle. All of a sudden they hear like a roar and a huge body swoops by them. And that's the dragons. That's Jon's first experience seeing dragons. And he's a bit shocked.
He's a bit shocked, He's kind of in awe of the dragons, actually. But yeah.
I kind of almost wish he wasn't. Like he'd have like very little reaction, and then Tyrion would be like, kind of looking at him like, why aren't you surprised? And he's like, because of all the shit he's seen.
I mean, he's seen literal zombies, so yeah.
Yeah, he's seen zombies, ice necromancers that shatter into shards when they're hit with a sword, and giants, wargs. He's seen some stuff,
I mean, he's in the unenviable position of having to convince Daenerys. Well, really convince anybody.
Plus he has a pet direwolf, so he has his own mystical beast. Jon sees the dragons. Tyrion says, I tell you get used to them, but you don't. They meet with Daenerys. We kind of went over all this, so we'll just say they met. They didn't necessarily get along as well as we'd maybe hope. We'd mentioned in the video, I had said that, and I still feel it's the case, that we know from seeing their separate adventures on the show, these 2 characters should get along well with each other. But those characters don't know that about each other.
Well, come on, you didn't honestly expect that they just meet and become like BFFs right off the bat. That's exactly the thing. Is like, if they had the knowledge that we have of watching those 2 characters, then they probably would be, But they don't have that knowledge, obviously. They're only seeing things from their perspective. And because of that, they kind of butt heads as 2 stubborn opposing forces. They're not violent against each other. They're not like stoking a conflict or anything, but they're just not necessarily getting along, They're just kind of like got their own stubborn things that they're set in. They're not coming together in the way that people are kind of like, come on, unite. And that's not happening. And that's obvious because, like I said, they don't have the perspective we do. Right.
So they don't trust each other. Varys tells Daenerys about the loss of her fleet. Daenerys has lost her fleet in the last episode, so she learns that now. Tyrion comes to her after talking to Jon, explains that she should, offer Jon the dragon glass that Jon wants because it's worthless to her.
Right.
Like, she didn't know it was there, and even besides not knowing it was there before, it has no real value to her as far as she knows. Like, once, of course, the War of the Dawn kicks off and everything's coming with the White Walkers, of course it's extremely valuable, but for everything that she's currently pursuing, it's worthless to her. It has no value at all. Tyrion saying, give him everything or give him something by giving him nothing. It's something that you just don't care about. So she ends up giving Jon Dragonglass, and he's kind of hopeful that she might believe in him, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. As you said in the video, she's got tunnel vision. She's pursuing her cause.
Right.
Everything's on Cersei.
She's just hyper focused on what she's been trying to accomplish since the show started, which was retaking the Iron Throne for
Jon's got tunnel vision as well, but his is kind of a little bit more justified.
Yeah, his is a little I mean,
real threat.
Jon might be worried about Cersei if he never saw the White Walkers, but he did, and so that's where his priorities lie now. Because
he's stuck in a situation where everyone he talks to is like, "You're underestimating Cersei," and he's like, "No, you don't seem to understand. I understand she's a threat."
Yeah, you're underestimating Cersei. Yeah, but the White Walkers are going to get here and they're going to murder Cersei to death, so she matters a bit less.
It's all Cersei will defeat us and maybe kill us. The White Walkers will destroy and kill everyone.
Right. Right, exactly.
It's like one's a bit worse than the other.
Pretty much.
So that's pretty much what's happening on Dragonstone. Related to that, we have a very short scene in which Theon Greyjoy is fished up by some of the other Greyjoy fleet.
He tries to lie to them. He tries to say everything he could to save his sister, but like it's a really weak lie, and they pretty much see it for what it is. Like
they basically say, if you tried, you'd be dead.
Yeah, so if you really tried, you wouldn't be here. It's like so they know he chickened out. What they're going to do about that, I don't know. Probably something bad.
we know that there are a few of Yara Greyjoy's ships that survived that attack.
That survived that attack. Yeah, if they're there, then yeah.
And we don't know if they still hold any allegiance to either Yara, who they think is pretty much certain to be killed, and who was their commander. And they obviously have no respect for Theon.
I think from the dialogue there, it seems like they still hold respect or hold the command to Yara because you know that they seem to be concerned about that. And the fact and the main guy there seems to get really offended at Theon's pathetic lie. You know when Theon lies about doing his best, that seems to really offend the main guy there. To the point he says.
Well, the bigger question though isn't necessarily if he still has respect for Yara. It's more that if he thinks Yara's even alive anymore.
That's true.
Like if you know, and if he doesn't think she's alive or thinks that she's doomed and there's no way they can save her, what is his motivation to still be part of Daenerys' forces? You know, we don't know that.
What's his motivate? Like, well, yeah, who's in command then, right? Because like, naturally it would be Theon because Theon is royalty, but Theon is also a useless coward that has.
And they have no respect for him. Yeah,
they have no respect for him, so they're obviously not going to make him their leader.
So, over in Winterfell now, we have Sansa is showing herself to be a bit capable in the role of a lordess.
Yes, as a leader, she is very skilled. It seems
she's planning for their grain shortages to feed their troops. She's planning for the armor because they're not putting leather on it, and she's saying, "Well, with winter, we need leather added to the metal, or people are just going to freeze to death in their armor."
Littlefinger takes an opportunity to counsel her.
He says it's actually a really interesting monologue he gives her, which is that she needs to envision every possibility and fight every possible battle in her mind so that she's never surprised.
He says something like, if the dead kill us all, then it'll be over for us and it won't matter. And, but if we defeat the dead or something, then there will still be the living and there will still be battles to fight. And then he tells her his secret. He's basically like, you want to know my secret? I think about every possibility all the time. And he basically tells her to do the same thing.
Yeah, just, you know, if you envision every possibility, then you'll never be surprised.
Right.
Immediately after that, somebody approaches Sansa and says that there's a rider. She comes to see what it is, and it's Bran sitting on a cart.
Bran is home. Finally.
Sage Bran.
A Sage Bran, yeah.
He's almost like a different person now.
Yeah, he's almost like a completely different person. Sansa's happy to see him.
And he's unmoved.
And he's unmoved. He is like emotionless until she gets him alone and she talks to him, and he just ends up weirding her out.
Yeah, because he's recalling something that's horrific for her, which is her wedding night. But he's basically saying, "You look so pretty in your dress," and you know, he's not even saying it like that. He's just like, "Oh, you look very pretty in your dress." You know, he's like just in a very emotionless way. You know, like, and he apologizes for the horror she faced, but he doesn't he says it in a very like emotionless way, which is what part of what's creeping her out. This is what Bran is. If he sees everything, then, you know, like there's nothing new to him. It's nothing like, you know, oh, you know, Sansa reacting sadly or being sad about or being surprised that he's there. All of that is stuff he's seeing already. So he's just kind of numb to it all. He's seen it all, you know?
Right.
It doesn't mean anything to him really. So that's kind of the position he's in, he's also has kind of, I think, a change in loyalty. Similarly to like Arya. He's kind of like Arya in that sense. Like Arya is still passionate. She still cares about her family, but she kind of has this like focus on her revenge, you know?
Right. She has a quest to fulfill.
Yeah. And Bran's kind of like similar in that way. He's got this role that he feels he needs to fill.
He didn't seek out, but that was kind of thrust upon him by whatever fate, destiny.
He's explaining it to Sansa, and she kind of just doesn't understand. He's saying,
doesn't understand. He's like, yo, hey, I have like these freaky, all-seeing powers now, and she's like,
I'm the three-eyed raven,
yeah,
and I have powers. And how did you get those powers? I learned them from the three-eyed raven.
But I thought you were the three-eyed raven, and he's like, yeah, I told you I can't explain this shit. So he basically said, it's magic. I don't gotta explain shit.
You explain it? Nobody got time for that.
Yeah, pretty much.
So over in Old Town, and we had mentioned this briefly as well in our discussion, Sam has officially cured Jorah. The disease is gone from his system entirely. Archmaster Ebros checked him over and said there's no infection anymore. He is completely cured. Jorah kind of thanks Sam and says he's going to head back off to try to find...
Sam basically performed a miracle because, as the Maester notes, Sam did something incredibly difficult that highly experienced and trained Maesters are not able to pull off.
But at the same time, he did something that's forbidden and that he expressly forbade himself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this like dual thing of like, you know, discipline and praise at the same time.
Yeah, he was impressed they pulled it off, but he also realized, again, it's something that experienced Maesters aren't able to do because it's so dangerous.
And that it wasn't just his own life, it was he put everyone in
danger.
And then further from there, you think of people moving between areas and how the disease could have spread.
Right. So like Samwell being a novice, you know, and performing this was extremely reckless of him. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think what saved his butt was the fact that he pulled it off. But it still didn't say he gets a pretty amusing discipline where he has to copy all of these tomes, which, you know, basically is rewrite them by hand.
Yeah. Because they're old worn tomes where they, you know, they're not going to last. This is just the material they're made of and stuff. The ink's gonna, you know, the pages will crumble, the ink will fade. So they need to.
There's like paper eating insects in them that are eating away the pages. He specifically tells Sam to watch out for them because they will bite. This
is his punishment. There's something interesting in that though, which is that I kind of have this idea, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, there's two things here. One is that duty, so it is a reward. Sam didn't seem to be so psyched about it, but think of what Sam was doing before.
Right.
Everybody remember the soup poop montage?
Yes, I remember. How can I forget? Like, I'm so surprised. Like, they didn't do that in this episode where they transitioned from something disgusting to food. Like
involved with Sam. There is something else though here, which is a theory that I'm kind of cultivating right now, which is that this Maester has been a little bit dismissive of Sam, but at the same time has been saying that he believes that what Sam is saying is true. He just doesn't necessarily believe the severity of it in the way Sam says, or, you know, to like give Sam access to the stuff. My theory in here is that this Archmaester is giving Sam the information that he needs. He planted these books for him to copy. And by copying these books, he's going to learn what he needs to know.
You know what? That's probably correct. I'm going to go with that. That sounds right. Because,
that's the kind of thing that somebody do to reward somebody, you know? Is they know that he wants that information, but they can't basically openly reward him because it's going to look like he's playing favorites or he's letting things slide that shouldn't, and not would threaten his position.
So, like, hiding it within the context of a punishment kind of makes it,
Because, I mean, if Sam's going to find some stuff, he's not going to find it while just having his nose buried in a book, copying them the whole time, you know? So, if he's going to find information he needs, it's not like he's going to get through that in a week, you know? The big stack of books, recopying them by hand. it seems like, yeah, there has to be something in these books that he's going to learn something. It could be accidental that, it wasn't meant for him, but it seems more likely to me based on the character of Archmaster Ebros and kind of like the way he's reacted to Sam, that this is, as you said, it's planting his reward in the guise of a punishment.
Right, exactly.
But that's it for Old Town. Over in King's Landing, this is where we start getting into stuff that we didn't discuss in the video before. Euron brings Cersei her gift, the Sand Snakes. Euron continues to kill it, I think, in this season. Where I didn't really like him so much in the last.
Right. He openly taunts Jaime. He openly mocks Jaime.
I also liked when he was pulling Yara, and he's like, oh, remember when Theon was shivering like a coward? So what a cunt,
Yeah, I know. He just enjoys being an asshole in a much more jovial way than Ramsay's enjoyed it.
He's just enjoying himself.
Right.
I like how he was asking Jaime how his sister likes it sexually. Does she like it soft? Does she like a finger up the bum?
Yeah, like very openly disrespecting Jaime.
And you can just see like the horror on Jaime's face at the questions.
Jaime just wants to flat out murder him.
Very badly.
Yeah.
Cersei says that she'll give him what he wants, but only when the war is won.
Yeah, basically, it's such a cop-out. Basically, he wants to marry Cersei, and he's pushing for that. Even as he hands Cersei the revenge that she sought, she's obligated to give him anything he wants, and he's saying, I want your hand in marriage, and she kind of balks at that. She clearly doesn't want to marry this man, so she kind of comes up with this kind of BS. Well, yeah, after the war, you can have it.
Basically, her plan is to win the war and then kill him.
Yeah, basically. Basically, she probably give him anything else right up front, but that she really, really doesn't want to marry this guy. So that's basically her way of getting out of that, is to say after the war, you can have what your heart's desire. To make it seem like she's not denying him, but she is in reality.
And he seems a little bit annoyed by it, but he's kind of putting up with it.
Right.
Now Cersei's taken the Sands into her dungeon. Has kind of a conversation with Ilaria where she's talking about, the horror of what was done to her daughter and kind of genuinely asking her, why would you do that? Why would you do that to her? There's nothing wrong. And Ilaria's just completely unrepentant. Not that it would have mattered anyways. Because Cersei's got kind of a bit of a crueler punishment in mind than even what she suffered with her daughter dying, which is that she leans in and keeps talking about how beautiful Tyene is and that, Ilaria has more daughters, but clearly Tyene is her favorite. Cersei leans in and gives her a kiss, at which point they realize something's wrong. Cersei takes the antidote, and now she used the same poison that Ilaria used on her daughter.
Right, she's going to kill her daughter in the same way her daughter was killed, with the extra cruel effect of that she's going to make her mother watch her die.
Even worse than that, die and rot away into a skeleton.
Yeah, die and rot away and so you see the extreme lengths of Cersei's cruelty, none of which by now should surprise anybody, really. Anybody watching the show. That's Cersei.
She's the Mad Queen. She's not the daughter of the Mad King, but she's taken on the role of the Mad Queen.
She's taken on the role of the Mad Queen. She is certainly mad.
The last thing that happens in King's Landing that's really worth noting is that Cersei has a conversation with the Iron Bank. She says she's going to pay them back in full. She makes a pretty good argument against them backing Daenerys, that they make money on the slave trade as a big bank, and Daenerys is banishing. She's not somebody who's going to be paying back this bank that's done nothing for her. The bank that she doesn't owe the bank. She's not going to pay them back.
But at the same time, the bank is playing hardball with her because she's making these arguments to them. And even if they are persuasive arguments, he's kind of, the guy representing the bank is kind of brushing all her points aside, really putting up a stone face to get her to capitulate and commit to their demands. So he's really.
She does surprise him though by saying she's going to pay them back in full.
Yeah. Well, she repeats.
Like
the family line. She repeats that. Lannister always pays their debts.
Yeah, and that she's going to do it momentarily. Like she's going to do it before he leaves the city.
Right. So it seems like he wins that encounter. The Iron Bank gets what it seeks.
We have to wonder at this point, we get a bit of the answer later, but we have to wonder at this point, well, how is she going to pay the Iron Bank back in full?
Right.
One is bankrupt. They've lost, they don't have much money. This constant war that she's in, the lack of the different kingdoms involved, they don't really have a good source of money. Then we know that Castle Rock is supposed to not have a lot of money left.
Right. The invasion of and takeover of Casterly Rock by the Unsullied.
Back in Dragonstone, Tyrion begins narrating how they're going to take the castle.
Yeah,
and then as he's narrating it, we begin to see the actual.
We see how it plays out.
Which is that the Unsullied kind of show up. They're going to take heavy losses, but they're not going to.
Well,
they're going to be.
It's impregnable. It's an impregnable fortress. You can't take it from the outside. In fact, there's seemingly no way to forcefully take Casterly Rock. It's so well defended. And then that's when Tyrion lets slip a little secret, because
he quotes Bronn.
Yeah, he quotes Bronn. Because Tyrion was put in charge of some of the construction.
The sewers.
Tyrion mentions how. Yep, the sewers. He was put in charge of the sewers. And he mentions how his father didn't approve of him taking whores into Casterly Rock for his pleasure. And so for that reason, he built a secret passageway into Casterly Rock from the sewers to which he could bring his whores in and have his fun. And that's something nobody except him knows existed. And that is a passageway the Unsullied can take advantage of to get inside of Casterly Rock and take it.
Only a small force can go in that way. The rest of the force kind of has to be at kind of naval warfare with Casterly Rock, right. Surrounding it.
Right.
And landing on the shores and kind of standing at the gates. They have to be there. They have to reach it the siege way while the Unsullied sneak in, a small group of Unsullied.
Thinking about something, I said nobody knew about it, but it's probably likely Jaime knew about that too, since Jaime and Tyrion were real close.
It's possible. It's also possible, though, that Jaime would just know that Tyrion would have a strategy, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Grey Worm and his small group of Unsullied that infiltrate Casterly Rock, they quickly take it. It's in Tyrion's narration, he's saying that they would be outnumbered and under-armored in comparison to the Lannister forces, but that the fact that they're fighting for freedom and the fact that they're so disciplined and they're not just out for money, but for this greater purpose means that they're going to fight much fiercer and they'll win.
Right.
But it's not that hard. They take it easily.
They take it easily. The Unsullied, Tyrion mentions the Unsullied are fighting for a purpose. The Lannister army is fighting out of loyalty and the fact they're being paid,
And then we see Grey Worm at the top of the castle, and he's grabbing the guards and asking, why aren't there more? There should be more soldiers. What's going on? He looks out to the ocean and sees his fleet being bombarded by the Greyjoys.
By the Greyjoy fleet. We go to Jaime Lannister. Jaime Lannister mentions that he knew Casterly Rock would fall, and he accounted for this. That's why he had the majority of the Lannister army not defend Casterly Rock.
It's a lesson he learned from Robb Stark back in season 2, I believe, of Game of Thrones, where a scene we saw where Robb had a small contingent of his men basically go to their deaths.
Right.
To fight in where Jaime where they thought the main war was going to take place. And then they took where Jaime thought a smaller part of a war was going to take place, and that's where they had their real forces.
Right.
And they were able to capture Jaime.
That was one of the major successful wins of the Stark war against the Lannisters, where Robb Stark really caught Jaime Lannister off guard. And also it was a point where it looked like the Starks were well on their way to winning, before the Red Wedding happened.
Well, the choices that were made leading up to the Red Wedding too. So
yeah, that's right.
There were a few mistakes he made after that point, but learned this lesson from his loss to Robb. We also find find out that not only did he abandon Castle Rock, but that the resources, the gold in Castle Rock, it's gone. The mine is dry. All of the grain and valuables that are they've taken them.
It's frankly not as important now as it used to be.
It's just a structure now. That's all that's there.
So Jamie knew he could sacrifice Casterly Rock, and it wouldn't make much.
Jamie
of a
marches
difference.
on Highgarden along with Randall Tarley and Braun.
Yes,
he has no dialogue, which is kind of a waste because that's where you want Braun.
Because Braun's
the only dialogue he has is Tyrion quoting him, in which he says, when Tyrion is trying to take Castle Rock, he said, "Give me a few good men, and I'll impregnate the bitch."
Right, exactly.
That's kind of, we see Braun in Highgarden, but the only dialogue we have is a reference to something he said in season 1.
Jamie and his forces take Highgarden, and
we don't even see the battle. It's just kind of
we just assume the battle's been they've been easily overpowered. So Jamie marches into the castle of Highgarden, and he confronts
As
Olenna.
he's going through the castle, by the way, you see the Lannister forces are packing up all of like gold and resources and stuff.
Right. So he encounters Olenna, and basically both characters know what has to happen there. Jamie's gonna kill Olenna, and they have a pretty good conversation before it happens. She knows it's the end for her. And Jamie pours some wine for the two of them, and Olenna, as one last stab, one last I gotcha.
Before that, she's basically saying, before she even has the wine with Jamie, she's basically telling him over and over again, "I know you love your sister, but you're going to come to regret."
Oh yeah. She's basically
your part in helping her.
She's basically telling him his sister is evil, but he's not going to listen to her about that because
but he's still drilling. She's still drilling it into his head, so that's going to be a voice he's hearing in his head.
Yeah, that's going to be a voice. But she's on the opposite side of the coin, so of course she's going to say mean and nasty things. So Jamie's unfazed by that.
He offers her poison.
Basically, she drinks the poison, and then as one last stab against Jamie and the Lannisters, she admits to killing Joffrey. She admits to being the one. She talks about how Joffrey died and how she's not going to die like that.
Well, it was interesting because she asked how the poison worked, if there was going to be pain involved.
Right.
And Jamie said, "No, I made sure of that." He's like showing compassion. Cersei wanted to do all sorts of horrific things, like skin her and hang her from the castle, and just all sorts of like messed up shit. And Jamie basically convinced Cersei, "No, let's just give her a quick poison and a quick end and be done with it." And she says, "Oh, that's nice that you've given me a quick end." She gulps that poison down like,
oh yeah, she just gulps it down. And then she's basically like, "Ha ha ha, I killed Joffrey."
And the poison that killed him, she had no idea. She'd never seen its effect before, and it was horrific.
It was pretty
in a way that she didn't want her own death to be.
Right. So that's why she
kind of gets this last word in when Jamie just kind of marches out of there, clearly upset. There's a few things here to note, though, is that it's not only is he now shaken by this news, Jamie's had this kind of suspicion in his mind for a while now that his own brother was responsible for Joffrey's death.
Yeah, that's what.
And now that's gone.
Gone. Yeah, that's true. He's
going to tell this to Cersei, and what do you think Cersei's going to say? It's not like she's going to suddenly go, "Oh, then our lovely little brother is fine."
No,
she hates Tyrion, and Jamie loves Tyrion. So you have this kind of this situation where maybe these kind of little barbs that Olenna was throwing at Jamie about Cersei and how he'll regret helping her spread in this evil way. Maybe some of that's going to start kind of echoing in his head when he sees how it doesn't even matter, not even going to care when he tells her that Olenna killed Joffrey. It's not even going to matter to her. She's still going to be just as vindictive against Tyrion. I could see how that might play into his psyche.
Yeah, Cersei just hates Tyrion no matter what.
She'd take any excuse to be hateful and harmful towards him.
Oh, yeah.
We heard back in season 4, I think, when Oberyn was telling the story of when he visited Castle Rock as a kid with his sister, and how Cersei and Jaime were also children, and how Cersei was pinching Tyrion's penis, like she was trying to cut it off, and she just hated him so much, even just as a baby, and how Jaime was begging her to stop, and how they said that they'd heard stories of this horrific baby, like Oberyn had said, that they were disappointed because it was just a baby.
Right.
It was being faced with this horrible situation with the sister, and it painted this horrible image of Cersei. So we got that, and you have to, we have to take that into context. So this is something that Jaime's seen. He saw her do. He was trying to stop her from doing that. We've seen kind of the barb she's thrown at Tyrion, the kind of hate. We've seen earlier in the season how she's even been that brother of ours that you saved and then later killed our father, that brother that killed our oldest son, and all these kind of barbs she's thrown to kind of create more distance between Jaime and Tyrion.
Right, pretty
you
much.
can see that what Olenna's done is she's masterfully planted a major seed of doubt in Jaime's head.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
She kind of just dropped a fucking bomb, like a time bomb that just hasn't gone off yet, and Jaime doesn't even realize, an insurrection in his mind. But that was Game of Thrones this week.
Yeah, pretty exciting episode. Definitely enjoyed it. This season is moving at a breakneck pace, which is, there's only 7 episodes, so it kind of has to. But, so yeah, I'm continuing to enjoy this season. It's probably one of the strongest seasons that they've had so far. So,
are you ready for a scary thought?
Yeah.
4 episodes left in this season, 6 episodes in the next season, 10 episodes left in the whole series.
Oh, yeah, that is a scary thought.
The Game of Thrones season is only 10 episodes.
So basically it's one season.
It's basically one season worth of episodes. Of course, those are longer episodes. Next season, every episode's supposed to be around 85 to 90 minutes. Much longer episodes next season. And the season finale this season is supposed to also be around 85, 90 minutes, somewhere in that range. So, there, in sheer amount of hours, there's a bit more actually, but close to the end of the whole series. I mean, not close in time frame because, it's looking like the last season won't even come out until 2019.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So still time-wise, it's a ways off, but in just a number of episodes, we only have 10 left.
Right.
Where do you think things are going right now? What are you anticipating for the next episode? Because we got Theon probably heading back to Dragonstone.
I have no idea.
Not sure, though.
No, Theon is going to be, punished by... I don't even know what the hell's happening there, because somebody's going to take command, and they're probably not going to be kind to Theon.
If he does go back to Dragonstone, Jon Snow's in Dragonstone. Theon was his adopted brother, not adopted brother, but Theon was in Winterfell with him when Theon grew up.
Yeah,
know each other deeply, and Jon Snow has no reason to trust him except what he did for Sansa at the end of last season.
Right. Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know there. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I expect at some point Daenerys is going to stop taking L's and get some W's in her corner, because right now she's just ever since she landed, she's just taking L's, and that's not really exciting to see TV wise. So,
well, that's the thing, is she came in last season with all the alliances she had in place, basically with an overwhelming advantage over Cersei.
Right.
Watched basically her forces get decimated.
Right.
Her strategic advantages have basically disappeared. She's at close to even playing ground. I'd say that she still probably has a bit of an advantage over Cersei.
Right.
And because of the Dothraki.
But her advantages are dwindling.
Yeah, big time. And quickly, in a very short period of time, she's lost a lot of her advantages.
Right.
Not only that, but her Unsullied are basically locked down in their own castle now.
Oh yeah.
They won Castle Rock, but now Castle Rock is basically their prison.
Yeah, they're trapped in Casterly Rock now, so it wasn't really strategically sound to take Casterly Rock after all. In fact, they were better leaving that alone.
Yeah, which means Tyrion's got some splaining to do.
Yeah, sure thing. So that's where that that's going. Other than that,
we haven't seen Arya this last episode, so I'm sure we're going to see her again.
We're going to see her marching ever close more towards King's Landing, probably traveling with these soldiers. Who knows what's going to happen there? That can go either way. Do you think
there's a possibility that she killed those Lannister forces that she ate with?
No.
And that she's going to use their faces?
No, I don't.
Lannister soldiers, so she could use their faces.
I don't think so.
But wouldn't that be cold?
Else?
Like a moment you see that she killed them to use to further her direction to King's Landing.
That's not dramatically like that. That's so anticlimactic that no. Especially because the way they humanized them in the first episode. So if the next time you see her, she's already killed these people, then that's kind of stupid.
Well, she's already departed from these people. Like she stayed with them and she left them, and we didn't see what happened when she left them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, she left them to go. We didn't see what happened. You're right.
We just see her in Hot Pie's, like the restaurant or pub or whatever he works in. That was like we saw her with them, and then we saw her with Hot Pie.
Let's
see. A little bit like disconnected at that point. So I don't know. Like that would be such a cold moment.
I think Jon's gonna win Daenerys over, and Daenerys is gonna realize she needs Jon on her side. I think they're gonna join forces. I think that's kind of inevitable, especially if
I think the more time those two characters spend together, the more they're gonna realize how similar they are.
Yeah, the more they're gonna like each other.
Yeah, she's gonna be like, "You look so hot," in a familiar kind of way.
Yeah, right. Eventually, they're just gonna bone, and people
find out that they're related.
And people are like, "Ew, incest," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's a thing in this show." And also, it's a very Targaryen thing. So, I mean, Targaryens don't have any qualms about incest. Like that's
and it's not
taboo.
nearly as close of an incest as like Jaime and Cersei had either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a brother sister, at least, you know.
It's not brother sister, at least, you know. Which we got some more brother sister incest in this episode as
brother
well.
Sister had.
Yeah. And Cersei,
what's it with oral sex in this season? Because in the last episode we had Greyjoy giving oral sex to Missandei.
and then they slept together because it shows after, and Cersei is no longer hiding it either.
That's an interesting point I forgot to put in the show notes. Is just that they had sex and she's like, "I'm queen now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm queen now. I can do whatever I want, including my brother."
Yeah.
Like that's her attitude. Nobody can question it. So
yeah, she just has she has no fucks to give.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's it for the episode. We'll discuss the next episode next week, so look forward to that. To end out the show, we're going to talk about what's coming up in the next week. So by the time this podcast is available on Friday, August 4th, 2017, Wet Hot American Summer 10 Years Later will be available on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
Comrade Detective is coming to Amazon. Voltron Legendary Defender comes back for its third season, I believe, on Netflix. August 6th, Ray Donovan is back on Showtime. Tuesday, August 8th, Difficult People returns to Hulu. On Wednesday, August 9th, Mr. Mercedes comes to DirecTV and AT&T. That is actually a Stephen King-based series.
Oh, okay.
DirecTV, AT&T audience channel or whatever. I don't have either, so I guess when it's on Netflix.
Right.
And also on that day, Swedish Dicks comes to pop. So Swedish Dicks is a Swedish show, and it actually stars, there's two guys, and they basically play private detectives in Los Angeles, but they're Swedish, and the show's from Sweden. One of them is, God, I can't think of his name for some reason right now. He was in American Gods. He played Chernobog.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but
I love the actor. He's in it. He's one of the two private detectives. You know who else is in this series?
Who else?
Keanu Reeves.
Oh, nice. Ha ha ha.
So he's in it in some role. He looks very John Wick-ish. On Friday, August 11th, 2017, Atypical comes to Netflix and White Gold comes to Netflix. Now, White Gold is from the creator of The In-Betweeners. That's what's coming up in the week ahead. As always, thank you for watching the show. You can reach me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will on Twitter. He is at Foxel Hero. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com. TVEnthusiast.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. The entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So until next time, good night.
Good night.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage